So in this video, we're going to talk about Super Mario 64. And like my last few videos where I was focusing on the Mario Party series, I'm going to be looking at a bunch of different stuff from this game, like renders, artwork, sprites, the manual, a whole bunch of different things, and just the game itself, and just analyzing some stuff, looking too deep into it and talking about it. I've got a handful of things I want to talk about from this game, so let's get into it. First of all, we have this. This, I believe, is on the international, or at least the US box art. And this is isolated, just the background artwork without Mario and the title in the way. It's the little globe. And of course, there's nothing in the game that is actually a sphere that you really walk on, but what's funny about that, well, first of all, I'm sure they did this just to be like, hey, it's 3D Mario now, but what's funny about that is, of course, this sort of looks like it would be from Super Mario Galaxy, which was like 2 mainline 3D Mario games later, and 2 whole console generations later, that they actually explored an idea like this that was merely just kind of foreshadowed here in this artwork. But also about this seems to portray 2 of the levels in the game, specifically Cool Cool Mountain with the penguins on the right, and I guess Shifting Sandland because of the Pokey and the palm tree on the left, and the only place in the entire game that palm trees appear is in Shifting Sandland. However, that island that they're on is grass and not sand, and there's also a Bob-omb on it, which as far as I know doesn't appear in that level, so it might be sort of a mix of Shifting Sandland and Bob-omb Battlefield even. And then of course on the top, that's obviously Peach's castle, but the Boo on the side might even be sort of alluding to Big Boo's haunt. Next up here is sort of the isolated cartridge art, or at least an expanded version. The title's still there, but the only reason I want to point this out is because there's nowhere in the game that you encounter Bowser in a terrain like this, in a sort of grassy, standard terrain. You only fight him on 3 different platforms in each of his Bowser levels, and all of them are sort of just in a void. Not anything like this. Also, when I was looking through the gallery for the game on the Mario Wiki, I found these things, which are really cool, which I've never seen before. I guess maybe these were made back when they were developing the game as sort of like test to visualize what the 3D environments of the levels would look like, or they were made after. Whatever it is, it sort of looks like it's in some Japanese magazine or something. I just have one of the images here, my favorite one, because it's Cool Cool Mountain, and Cool Cool Mountain's awesome. Apparently they made these little 3D models of the levels. They sort of look like they're made out of like clay or something, or like one of those little mini landscape kits you would make for like a little mini train model. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why they exist, but they're cool, and there are a couple others for the other levels as well. Also, here's this render, and I say this render, there's actually like 10 different versions of this, so I guess whatever software they were using, they just kind of rotated it several times. This is just one of them, but you can find multiple different variants of this image that are all just slightly different angles and like zooms. But this one specifically, or it doesn't even have to be this one, this is obviously supposed to be one of the Bowser boss fights, and there are the spheres around, which, you know, in the boss fight, those are the bombs, which are like blue spheres with yellow spikes. Here, they're like rusty globes, so I don't know if these are even supposed to be the bombs, or if this is just sort of like a test environment, or just like an example, like, hey, here's just a 3D space, but those look nothing like the bombs, even though I'm sure that's what they're supposed to be. And also they're connected to the stage instead of floating outside of it, which they're not supposed to be. And here's another one of those little clay mock-up things. This one's of Peach's castle. You've got some ugly looking toads and Mario and Peach standing outside. And they went as far as including Yoshi on top, which is something that not many players would even experience, getting every single star in the game and meeting Yoshi on top of the castle. Not even really like a big part of the game, more so just an Easter egg, but they put him there. And he's larger than life, just to really exemplify the fact that he is there. And here's something cool that I've never seen before. This is like an entire all-in-one shot layout of Tick-Tock Clock, because it's a vertical level. Even if you have like the map as you would see it in Super Mario 64 DS, you would never see the whole thing all at once. So this is just kind of cool to see. Also, here's some key art for Vanish Mario, where he's going through a brick wall, which of course shouldn't be possible The only things he can go through with the Vanish Cap are little wireframes and cages, as well as certain solid walls, and I believe the only one is the one in Big Boo's Haunt, which I don't think is a brick wall, but if it is, then I guess that's what this is. Otherwise, I don't think this is possible. This is, of course, I guess just showing off, like, hey, he can go through things, not all things, though. So here's something from Tall Tall Mountain in the mystery slide on that level. It's one of those little background decals. I picked this one out just because it kind of reminds me of the star sprites from Mario 64. Like, this specific sprite looks like it would be straight out of Paper Mario 64. Then we've, of course, got the sun carpet design from the center of the castle's lobby, which I pointed this one out just because the final level, or the final playable level in Ripple Star, I believe 6-4 of Kirby 64, you go through several different rooms, some of which have very similar floor patterns to this. And those are, of course, both, like, the mainline entries for their respective series on the Nintendo 64, Mario and Kirby. Here's the map that appears in Hazy Ma Cave, and I only pointed this one out just because if you look at the bottom right part specifically, it sort of looks like a little simplified version of Yoshi's face, especially since the map color is green, like Yoshi. Here's the decal that appears on the Heave-Ho enemy. This specific just depiction of Bowser with that weird snout and mouth he has going on here, along with the fact that he's doing the thumbs up, this almost looks like that one render of Donkey Kong where he's giving a thumbs up. Or just his mouth in general here. I feel like a lot of like cartoony monkeys have a mouth designed like that. And here's two things here. These are the maps. I should mention these two images are from Super Mario 64 DS, not the original, but you don't really get maps of the levels in the original. This is the Secret Aquarium and I believe Tower of the Wing Cap. And what's weird about both of them is that they both have a 4-color scheme thing going on, with the colors orange, pinkish red, and then dark and light blue for like the 4 edges. And I don't know what those colors mean, or if they're just arbitrary, but they do appear in both for whatever reason. I don't think they have any other relevance anywhere else in the game outside of that. Almost maybe, since there's 2 shades of blue, you could view this as just 3 colors, like yellow, red, and blue, which are the coin colors in the game. Outside of that, I don't really know. Here's another, like, full level layout, all in one image. This is Bowser in the sky, the final level. I just included this one just because, like, if you think about it, this really just shows that this is a video game, and as a platformer, it doesn't really make sense. Like, you can tell this was designed just to be platformed on. This would make no sense as an actual location. There's no way Bowser would have this. He doesn't live here, he doesn't use this. He probably can't even maneuver around this himself. There's just no reason for this to exist for like a lore standpoint, outside of maybe he just set it up to give Mario a challenge. Anyway, here's the Shuya enemy, and here I'm just going to get into a couple different enemies and what they look like in the game. So you notice here its arms are purple. However, in the DS version, which I believe is probably the only other time that Shuya has ever appeared, its arms were white instead, as well as the antenna on its head, which here is yellow, so that's a random change. Here's the Fwoosh enemy, which at first had a very cute face, but in the remake had a more angry face. However, this specific design of Fwoosh was like 1-for-1 transferred into Mario Party 3 and 2 of the minigames, being Parasol Plummet and Awful Tower. But what's funny is that specifically Parasol Plummet, that minigame was recreated in Mario Party Superstars, and in that recreation, instead of using the updated design of Fwoosh, like the angry one from 64 DS, it's just a cloud. So they just killed him off, I guess. Also, here's the model of Swoop the Bat and Monty Mole. I couldn't help but notice that they look kind of similar. They have very similar eyes, a very similar nose, and very similar buck teeth. It's almost like they're implying some kind of relation between the two of them, especially since they're both based on mammals. Maybe Swoops are like an advanced subterranean flying form of Monty's, at least for this design, because otherwise I don't think they have buck teeth ever. In fact, they don't even look like this outside of this. Here's the Scuttle Bug. this is probably the weirdest they've ever looked as well, and I really never figured this one out. I don't know why they have like a lava orb as their body, but I couldn't help but notice that that is a very similar design to the body of Chill Bully, so I'm not sure if they used the same spherical asset for both of them, but it does kind of look like a recolor for their bodies. And also, the Scuttle Bug's eyes look very similar to just Mr. Eye's entire body, because all Mr. Eye is just an eye, so maybe they just changed like the iris section from blue to red and then turned it into a flat sprite in making the Scuttle Bug. Or actually, I'm not even sure if its eyes are flat or if they're 3D or not, but either way they look pretty similar. Anyway, here's something from the manual that sort of sets up the story to the game, and it's using different colors to represent different characters talking: pink for Peach, orange for Bowser, and blue for Mario. All of that is made obvious, but then at the very end there's red text, which, you know, red is Mario's color, much more so than blue, but they made it clear that the blue is Mario, so there's no clue as to who the red is. The only person I could think of who it could possibly be saying that is Toad, because he's like the only other big character in the game, really. Here's something else from the manual. It shows like a diagram, or a chart, I guess, of what the castle looks like and the layout. And yeah, it's right, there are 3 floors and a basement and a courtyard, but this is nothing like what it looks like. I mean, it's only showing a singular door on each floor, which doesn't really make sense. And also the 3rd floor, if I'm not mistaken, is like a big circle, not a rectangle. So this is just wrong in many ways. So here's the Thwomp, and this is another one I'm confused about. I don't know why they made this design for the Thwomp in the 64 era. Like, the original design of Thwomps from like Super Mario Bros. 3 or whatever, those look more like modern Thwomps than these, even though these are sort of in between. Like, Thwomps had already been established as these gray stones with spikes, and they randomly became blue blocks for some reason. Anyway, here's the Bullet Bill. There's 2, so like, this looks a lot more like what we now would know as a Bonsai Bill, which also already existed at the time. It came out in like Super Mario World, and I say that because Bonsai Bills have mouths, but no arms, and Bullet Bills have arms, but no mouth. And there were some other early depictions of Bullet Bills with mouths, like not in their early sprites. The only other time a Bullet Bill has ever looked like this is in Super Mario Land 2, where it also had a mouth, but no arms. But even before that, Bullet Bill sprites had arms, but no mouth, which is how they're supposed to look and how they look now. I guess, even in those older sprites, like their original sprites in Super Mario Bros., artwork for the game showed them with mouths, but it was just a whole weird thing. Either way, I guess they just excluded the arms here just to save space or something. And then we've got the Spindrift enemy, which in this version has a white spherical head, but for whatever reason in the DS version it became tan. Another random color change that didn't really have to happen, but I guess they did it anyway. Anyway, that's all I've got for this game. Not sure what other games I'll touch up on, or if I'll even continue this series, because I do have some other ideas for different things I want to move into, but I don't know right now. Anyway, if you like this, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and all that, if you want. And thanks for watching.